Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Clive. You're watching Just Clive. Today I will be sharing with you 10 things that I learned in my first few years of marriage. Let's do this. So the first thing that I learned in my first few years of marriage is learning to tell the difference between when an issue is a sin issue versus when it is a preference issue. Now, if your spouse lies or cheats or hits you, that's a sin issue. But if your spouse doesn't hang the toilet paper the way you want it hung, that's a preference issue. And if you can identify under which category a problem falls, it'll guide you as to how to deal with it. You don't have to call the pastor in because he's hanging the toilet paper wrong, So it's important, I found that it was important to tell the difference between when is something just a personal preference versus when is it sin. Second thing that I learned in my first few years of marriage is the importance of showing gratitude. Now, there's always something to be grateful for, and it can be something big or it can be something small, but it's important to show your spouse that you see what they're doing and you appreciate it. If your spouse is doing the dishes or cooking or working with people who they don't get along with, say, hey, I see what you're doing and I appreciate that. And the wonderful thing about having an attitude of gratitude is that you'll be so focused on the great things about your spouse that their flaws will start to seem more and more insignificant. Another thing that I've learned is the importance of praying for your spouse. Now, this is a good habit to get into right from the start. And what I find is helpful, I have a little list with things that I pray for my husband. And I do try to go through that list every day. And, ask your spouse, hey, is there something that I can be praying for you for? And if my husband is discouraged, I can easily tell him that, hey, I'm praying for you. It has such a positive effect on one's spiritual life to know that whatever battles you're fighting, you're not fighting them alone. Another thing that I've learned is don't gossip about your spouse. Yeah, there's a difference between going to your friend and saying, friend, we're going through a difficult time, please pray for us, versus going to your friends and saying, hey, let me tell you about this man, he don't do this, she don't do that, she can't do this, she can't do that. That's gossip, and no one is benefiting from that situation. All you are doing is breaking down your king in front of other people. So if there's something that you need help with, don't go tell the whole world, don't go broadcast on Facebook. Have, people who you can talk to, whether it's a close friend or pastor's wife, but don't gossip. There's a fine line between gossiping and asking for some prayer. Another thing that's been really helpful for us is actually something that we learned in counseling, and I'll put a link in the information card above about the importance of counseling. But anyway, the thing that we've learned is don't let the sun go down on your anger. So what that means for us is don't stay angry for long. The longer you stay angry, the bigger the offense becomes in your heart and the harder it is to reconcile with your spouse. If there's an issue, try and resolve it as quickly as you can. Another thing that I've learned is when you forgive sincerely and be done with it. You can't tell your spouse, I forgive you, but then 6 months down the line, you're still taking out his file to say, on the 6th of November, 1975, you did XYZ. No. If you've forgiven your spouse, then it's finished. Don't bring it up again. And if you're struggling to get over it and still continuously bringing it up, then maybe you haven't forgiven him. Next thing that I've learned is that it's okay to do things separately. Yes, you're married, but you don't have to do everything together. There can be some things that your husband is interested in that doesn't really excite you all that much. And it's okay. It's okay to have separate hobbies. And speaking about having separate hobbies, even if you're not necessarily interested in your spouse's hobby, it's good to kind of show that you care. So let's say if your spouse's hobby is gardening, you don't have to go pick up a pitchfork and garden with your spouse. but occasionally ask, hey, what new plants have you got growing in the garden, or what's the name of this plant, or what's your ultimate goal with the gardening? Oh, that looks so fun. Why do you like gardening? You're not doing gardening with them, but you're showing an interest in something that your spouse cares about. Another thing that I've learned is the importance of making time for each other. Now, although you might see your spouse every day after work, it's during the busyness of work and school and differing schedules and children, you could miss each other emotionally. So it's very important to set aside a time, an hour or 2 hours or one day or however amount of time you feel is necessary to reconnect with your spouse, time that is just for the two of you. And especially if you have children, it's important to have couple time, because the better you function as a husband and wife, the better you will be as a mother and father. And I would recommend that do date nights as often as you can, and it doesn't even have to be expensive. Hit the notification bell, because in my next video I will show you 10 date night ideas for under 100 rands. The next thing that I've learned in my first few years of being married is don't deprive each other. Know each other frequently. Married people, use your imaginations. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, click here and here for my previous videos, and I'll see you in the next one.